Piers Morgan speaks his mind. He always has. But when Britain's most controversial TV host says that Meghan Markle is the single biggest public relations disaster in recent royal history, worse than even Prince Andrew's terrible BBC interview, worse than Edward VIII giving up the throne, you have to pay attention. Because whether you like him or hate him, Piers has been proven right about Meghan over and over again. And what he's saying now should worry everyone in the Sussex team. Let's go back to where this all started. Because the fight between Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle is one of the most bitter public arguments in recent media history. And it's a fight that's hurt both of them badly, though you could argue Meghan has suffered more. Morgan says they were friends once. They sent messages to each other, had drinks in London, and seemed to really like each other. Then Harry showed up, and according to Piers, he was completely ignored. She stopped answering messages, stopped talking to him, and cut him off completely. Now, you might think that's just how famous people act. People change friend groups, things shift. But Piers took it personally, very personally. And when someone like Piers Morgan feels rejected, he doesn't just quietly move on. He fights back. Jump ahead to March 2021, and that explosive Oprah interview. You remember it, the claims of racism within the royal family, the stories about feeling suicidal and being refused help, the tears, the drama, the worldwide headlines. Meghan presented herself as the victim of a cold, uncaring system that had ruined her mental health and discriminated against her son. The next morning, on Good Morning Britain, Piers did something that would end his job at ITV, but make him Meghan's biggest critic. He said, quite simply, that he didn't believe her, not one word of it. He doubted her stories about being suicidal. He doubted the racism claims. He doubted everything. The angry response was immediate and huge. Ofcom received over 57,000 complaints, the most in British TV history. Mental health charity Mind criticized his comments. His own co-host, Alex Beresford, argued with him on air, which led to Piers walking off the show in anger. Within days, he'd left Good Morning Britain completely. It seemed like Meghan had won. Piers was out of a job. She had millions of people feeling sorry for her. The story seemed final. But here's the thing, and this is what makes Piers Morgan's victory so amazing nearly. Everything he questioned has since been proven either false, blown out of proportion, or very questionable. The claim that Archie was denied a title because of his race? Completely false. The rules about titles were created by King George V in 1917, and Archie wasn't entitled to be a prince at birth because he wasn't the child of a direct heir. That's the rules, not racism. The claim that the wedding happened 3 days before the televised ceremony. The Archbishop of Canterbury himself explained that what happened was a private exchange of promises, not a legal wedding. The legal wedding was the one we all watched. The claim about being trapped, voiceless, unable to speak? She did over 70 public events, gave speeches, had a platform that most people would dream of having. The facts simply don't support the story of a silenced woman. And the claims about who made comments about Archie's skin color, those have shifted and changed so many times that even sympathetic watchers are confused. First, it was a family member. Then Harry said it wasn't the Queen or Philip. Then, in the Oprah interview, there were multiple concerns and conversations. The story keeps changing. For those of you who want the unfiltered truth about what's really happening in the royal world, make sure you're subscribed to Royal Daily Report. We cut through the PR lies and bring you the facts that others won't touch. Hit that subscribe button now and join our community of royal truth seekers. Piers Morgan's main argument, and it's becoming harder to disagree, is that Meghan Markle has achieved something truly amazing in the worst possible way. She's managed to turn herself from one of the most loved newcomers to the royal family into one of the most distrusted public figures in Britain. And increasingly, in America too. Think about where she started. The engagement announcement in 2017 was met with real excitement. Here was a biracial American actress joining the British royal family. It was historic, it was modern, it was everything the monarchy needed to prove it could change with the times. The wedding in May 2018 was watched by billions. Her popularity ratings were extremely high. She was being compared to Diana. Less than 7 years later, she's polling worse than Prince Andrew in Britain. Prince Andrew, the man who had that terrible Newsnight interview about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Let that sink in for a moment. How do you go from being the fresh-faced bride that the nation welcomed to being less popular than a prince who had to step back from royal duties? because of his connection with a convicted sex offender, that's not just a PR disaster. That's a PR catastrophe. Morgan argues that it's because Meghan is basically dishonest, that she says one thing and does another, that she plays the victim while at the same time having enormous power and influence, that she demands privacy while selling her private life for millions, that she positions herself as a voice for people without power while silencing anyone who criticizes her. And the evidence keeps piling up in his favor. Take the privacy issue. Harry and Meghan left the royal family, saying they wanted to escape aggressive media coverage and live a quiet, private life. Fair enough, you might think. Except they then signed a deal with Netflix, rumored to be worth over £100 million, specifically to make content about their private lives. They did a 6-hour documentary series that was literally called Harry and Meghan, and was all about them talking about their private lives. They released a book, Harry's memoir Spare, that contained personal details about everything from drug use to the number of people he'd killed in Afghanistan to fights with William. This isn't wanting privacy. This is making money from publicity while complaining about publicity. And the public isn't stupid. They can see the contradiction. Piers Morgan has been hammering this point constantly, and it's working because it's obviously true. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be private public figures. You cannot demand to be left alone while at the same time seeking attention and making money from that attention. Then there's the victim story, and this is where Morgan's criticism cuts deepest. Meghan positions herself as someone who's been uniquely attacked, uniquely discriminated against, uniquely oppressed. She's compared herself to Nelson Mandela. She's suggested the royal family treated her worse than they treated anyone else in history. But as Morgan points out with increasing frustration, she married into one of the most privileged families on earth. She lived in palaces. She wore tea. She had staff serving her constantly. She traveled in private jets and expensive cars with drivers. She had a platform to speak to millions. Yes, she faced racist abuse from trolls online, and that's completely wrong. Yes, the British tabloids were often cruel and invasive, and that's wrong too. But the idea that she's a victim comparable to people who've faced real oppression, real poverty, real discrimination, that's affected their life chances and safety, it rings hollow. And when you're a multimillionaire complaining about your oppression from your $14 million mansion in Montecito, people stop feeling sorry for you and start resenting you. Morgan's most damaging criticism is about believability. He argues that Meghan has told so many obvious lies, made so many claims that don't hold up when examined, that nothing she says can be trusted anymore. The timeline problems, the changing stories, the accusations that palace staff have quietly denied, the lawsuit against the Mail on Sunday where her own father contradicted her version of events, the staff members who've left, the reports of bullying that she refused to properly address. None of this alone might be damning, but altogether, it paints a picture of someone who bends the truth, who shapes reality to fit her story, who doesn't let facts get in the way of a good tale. And once that reputation is established, it's almost impossible to change. It's why the PR firms keep failing. Because you can't PR your way out of a believability crisis. If you're finding this analysis valuable, remember to subscribe to Royal Daily Report. We're not afraid to tackle the tough questions and challenge the official stories. Make sure you're part of our growing community by hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications. Now, Morgan's critics, and there are many, argued that he's obsessed, that his constant criticism of Meghan is unhealthy, that he needs to move on. And there's some truth to that. The man does bring her up a lot. He's built a big part of his post-GMB career around criticizing her. But here's the uncomfortable reality. He keeps being proven right. When he said the Oprah interview was full of problems, he was mocked. Then the problems became undeniable. When he said the Netflix series would be a ratings disaster, people said he was bitter. Then the viewing numbers told their own story. When he said the American public would turn on her, people said he was crazy. Then the polling data from the US showed her approval ratings dropping. When he said the constant victim story would backfire, people said he was cruel. Then even sympathetic media outlets started questioning whether the Sussexes needed to change their approach. Morgan argues that Meghan represents something deeply problematic in modern celebrity culture: the use of victimhood as a weapon, the blurring of truth and story, the use of serious issues like racism and mental health as shields against fair criticism. And whether you like Piers Morgan or not, That's a serious point worth thinking about. The modern royal era that Morgan talks about includes some genuinely disastrous moments. Princess Diana's panorama interview, which was later revealed to have been obtained through lies, Prince Andrew's Newsnight catastrophe, Charles and Camilla's various scandals in the 1990s, Sarah Ferguson's embarrassing photographs, the terrible year of 1992 when 3 royal marriages collapsed. But Morgan argues that none of them have done as much damage to the monarchy's reputation as Meghan Markle, because all of those were scandals that happened to flawed individuals who were still basically supportive of the institution. Meghan and Harry have actively attacked the institution itself from the outside, using the global media they claim to hate. They've accused the royal family of racism without providing proof or naming names. They've suggested the institution is cruel and uncaring. They've portrayed themselves as victims of a toxic system, and they've done all of this while using their royal titles and status. That's not just a PR disaster for Meghan and Harry, that's a PR disaster for the entire monarchy. It's given ammunition to people who want to abolish the monarchy. It's divided opinion. It's created a story of the royal family as potentially racist, definitely out of touch, and willing to destroy a young woman's mental health. Whether that story is true is almost irrelevant at this point. The damage is done. And that, argues Morgan, is why Meghan Markle is the biggest PR disaster of the modern royal era. Not because she's faced scandals herself, but because she's created a scandal that's consumed the entire institution. The king is dealing with cancer. He's trying to simplify the monarchy to make it more relevant to modern Britain. And yet, every time there's a Sussex development, it dominates the headlines. Every time Meghan or Harry speaks, the royal family has to deal with the consequences. That's not just a distraction. That's an active threat to the monarchy's long-term survival. Morgan's solution. He argues that the royal family should take away Harry and Meghan's titles, that they should be called Mr. and Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor, that they should have to succeed on their own merits without the royal connection they both criticize and exploit. Would that work? Possibly. It would certainly remove the contradiction of attacking the institution while benefiting from its prestige, but it would also create a new wave of headlines, new accusations of cruelty, new chapters in the victim story. The royal family is trapped. If they do nothing, the Sussexes continue to use their titles while attacking the institution. If they act, they look mean and prove Harry and Meghan's point about being treated badly. It's a lose-lose situation, created by what Piers Morgan correctly identifies as the most catastrophic PR disaster in modern royal history. Whether you think Piers Morgan is a brave truth-teller or an obsessive bully probably depends on your view of Meghan Markle, but the facts are becoming increasingly difficult to dispute. Meghan has gone from beloved to hated in record time. Her claims have been repeatedly challenged and often proven wrong. Her approval ratings are dropping fast on both sides of the Atlantic. And the PR disaster she's created isn't just personal, it affects the whole institution. Morgan may be proven right, but there's no joy in watching this play out. Because whatever you think of Meghan Markle, the damage to the monarchy, to public discussion, to the serious issues of racism and mental health that have been caught up in this saga, that damage is real and lasting. The biggest PR disaster of the modern royal era isn't just about one woman. It's about what happens when celebrity, victimhood, and institutional power crash together in the age of social media and global communication. And none of us should be celebrating that.